Hello and welcome. I'm Karen Kardos, Head of Philanthropic Advisory, and we are delighted that you've chosen to spend time with us. Citi Latitude is our program to bring together ambitious and influential individuals throughout the world to create impact. We have these monthly impact sessions where you can have an interactive discussion with global experts, thought leaders, and individuals who are passionate about their fields. Before I introduce our guests, one point of logistics. Please feel free to use the chat function to ask questions, and I'll be able to see your questions as they come up. And we'll save time at the end of our discussion so you can ask questions directly. I am thrilled to introduce to you two of the most engaging and energetic brother and sister philanthropists that I have had the privilege to work with, Reetu and Suraj Gupta. Reetu is president and co-chair of the Gupta Family Foundation. She is also chairwoman and ambassadress of the Gupta Group. She graduated with an MBA from Suraj School of Business and has been twice honored with the distinction of WXN's Top 100 Most Powerful Women in 2019 and 2020. And equally impressive is her brother Suraj, who is the Chief Strategy Officer and co-chair of the Gupta Family Foundation. He is also the CIO of the Easton's Group of Hotels and the Gupta Group. In addition, he serves on the Rockefeller Next Gen Advisory Council, the Forbes Business Council, and the WXN Diversity Council. And if that wasn't enough, he has been a special delegate to the United Nations, an author for Forbes.com, and has been honored as the KML Top 30 Under 30. He holds an MBA from Columbia University. Together, Reetu and Suraj have also co-founded Rogue Insight Capital, a venture capital and private equity firm focused on visionaries who dare to transform the world around them. Rogue's primary mandate includes investing in female, immigrant, and minority founders, as well as companies that are making a social impact on their community. A very warm welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful. So it's so great to see you both. Reetu, I'd like to start with you, if I might. If you could just give us some insights on how your parents sort of shaped your philanthropic spirit.
Absolutely. I give the entire credit of my philanthropic spirit. I love that you called that. All the credit goes to my parents. And the reason is when we were very young, they always taught us the importance of giving back. And I actually have a very fond memory. I was very, very young, and I was maybe between 5 and 7 years old, and my mom was sitting at her home office, and she was opening up envelopes, and in the envelopes were letters from children that she had adopted in India. So it was through one of those agencies, and these letters were so sweet, and they were I don't even think I could read at that time, so maybe I was younger than 5, and these kids had written these heartfelt letters to my parents, just saying, thank you for their help and thank you for their support. And I remember thinking how beautiful it was that, we're sitting here in Canada, and we're so blessed, and we have so much, and my parents are also helping these other children. In addition to that, they always taught us the importance of giving back. So if we got money as a gift from one of our grandparents, they would always say, okay, so you can spend it, you can save it, or you can donate it, and maybe you should go to the temple on the weekend and you can donate money there. They always have taught us that importance of giving back. We also grew up with so many stories, knowing that my parents had actually launched our foundation in the 80s. My dad had run eye camps in India for many, many years, allowing people in rural villages to have cataract surgeries and glasses, and have these types of eye procedures that they wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. So when you grow up with that and you're kind of constantly surrounded by it, for me, it just really became ingrained in me that this is kind of one of my sole purposes here on earth. I need to be able to give back, and philanthropy is just, it's so dear to my heart, and definitely my parents get full credit for that.
So Suraj, Ritu mentioned your parents and how they really influenced you. And she also spoke a little bit about the origins of the foundation. Could you give us a little bit more background on sort of what your parents' focus areas were, what they were interested in, maybe how they shaped your philanthropic spirit as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would love to speak to that. And I can definitely echo everything Ritu said. One thing that's just so amazing about our parents is they came to Canada with absolutely nothing. They came to Canada with $100 in their pocket and nothing else. And they came to build a better life for themselves, for my dad's brothers, his sisters, his parents. They kind of came to sort of build that. But all along the way, they always sort of preached the importance of giving back. It wasn't one of those, once we get to a certain level, then it becomes important. They sort of taught that at any given time, when you have the ability, you sort of have that duty to give back. And I think that being in that family, we sort of constantly saw that. We constantly saw that they really ingrained in us that ideal that when you have the ability to give back, you have to. It's not sort of optional. And I think that, I have a lot of similar stories to Ritu. We would find $5 and they would say, okay, great, now we can donate that and that's going to impact somebody. They did a lot of different charity, especially things for disaster relief and a lot of different sort of one-off projects in India, because often there was a lot of, like we mentioned, the cataract eye camps. There was a lot of individual projects that you could set up for a very cheap price compared to what it would cost in Canada or the United States, and it could drive a really significant impact. So that was always something my parents really drove towards, was the idea of being able to help people and being able to help people at scale. And it's definitely something that really resonated with us, because I saw it from the age of 0 until now. Like, they were always doing it despite where our family might have been and where our family company might have been, which was really amazing.
So, Suraj, you used the word duty, right? And I think, Ritu, before when we were speaking, you used the word responsibility. And I think sometimes that can be hard for individuals to take on, right? And I'm just wondering, for both of you, how would you maybe encourage people to take on that responsibility?
Sure. Suraj, I'll go first, and please jump in at any time. For me, the reason why I feel like that it's a duty, as Suraj said, or responsibility, is if we have the ability to give back, and whether, if there's people that don't have the funding to give back, that's okay. Maybe you can volunteer your time. There's always good to do in the world. And I think that as we grow and as we evolve, and, for me, the way I look at it is I love to learn and I love to educate myself and I love to have knowledge. And the more of that I gain, the more I realize that there's so many people out there that don't have access to knowledge, don't have access to education. And if I have the ability to help, then I should always help. And I think for me, and for all of you on this call, I know sometimes it might be a little bit daunting to think, okay, I feel like a lot of people have that urge that they want to give back, and they have this feeling in their heart that, you know what, I do want to do good and I want to do more, but I don't know where to start. I think, Karen is a great example. She's someone great to talk to. Myself and Suraj can always be available. There's always a way to give back, and it's actually a lot more simple than it seems. I have a lot of people that come to me to say, Reetu, you give back. How did you come up with the idea? What did you do? And for me, I kind of think it wasn't that difficult. I just decided I wanted to give back, so I gave back. And I think that I'm very spiritual, and I believe in the universe. And I feel that when you set that intention and when you put it into the universe, and Dalai Lama always says that when you have a sincere motivation, that you will always be successful. So I can tell all of you today that if you have that little inkling, that little thought that you want to give back, and you put that to the universe, your help, guidance, everything will be given to you. And Suraj and I are definitely here to help.
Definitely. I completely second that. I think that concept we hear a lot, right? It's difficult to start. How do you begin? But the wonderful thing about giving back, philanthropy, whether you're volunteering time, you're donating to a cause you really are inspired by, or you're kind of rallying people to get behind something, no matter what you choose to start with, you're going to drive an impact. And that is only beneficial. So you don't need to be as concerned about the concept of, well, where do I start? Maybe this isn't as impactful. Maybe I should wait and find another opportunity, because once you start doing it, you're just going to start driving impact, and that's going to kind of snowball in a very positive and beautiful way. And I think that can be really amazing. And I think sometimes, exactly as Reetu mentioned earlier, giving back doesn't always have to be financial. That can be a huge benefit. And I think almost every charity and philanthropic organization around the world has a need of funds, and they would use those funds in an amazing way. But there's a lot of other ways you can give back as well. For me personally, my sort of objective in life at any given point is to be adding as much value to the world as possible and helping as many people as possible. So what I do is every few months, I sort of check back in with that and say, okay, do I feel like I'm fulfilling either of those two things? One example I can give is about a year ago, I felt like, you know what, I think I can be doing more. I'm just going to start doing some research. And I stumbled on this amazing organization that's based in Ontario that is very focused on getting at-risk youth off the street into jobs, into school, what have you. And most organizations around the world that do this have a very low success rate, 20, 30%. This group had an 80 or 90% success rate. It's just they're rock stars. And I realized that their government funding would help, but really what they needed was they needed volunteers. They needed people to come and speak to the students and talk about, little steps you can take, interview prep, and how to get a job and how to get into school, and these things that these kids didn't have access to. So I went in for an hour and I did a speaker session with maybe 50 of these kids and answered a bunch of questions. And I realized that there's a lot of different ways you can give back when you explore. So honestly, research the things that are important to you, and you will definitely come across things that you could give back to that would be really fulfilling. And exactly as Reetu said, Reetu and I and Karen, we're all here to help in any way we can.
I love that, right? It's not just about treasure, it's about time, it's about talent. And I've said this many times to clients, there's no right or wrong when it comes to philanthropy. There's no judgment. If it's important to you, go ahead, take that first step. So thank you. Reetu, you sort of described to me the recreation and launching of the Gupta Family Foundation in 2020. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. How much details are we? How much details are we giving?
As much as you feel comfortable.
Okay, perfect. So my parents, they launched our foundation, our family's charitable organization. They launched it in the 80s. As I said, my dad had done really amazing work because I just feel that it's my sole purpose to be able to give back to the world. When I started working full time after my undergrad, I basically forced my parents to make me a director on their foundation. And they, at that point, the foundation had changed over lawyers and firms so many different years. So it was kind of a treasure hunt for me to figure out, okay, where are the minutes? Where are the shareholder agreements? Where are the corporation documents so I can add myself as a director? And the reason why I did that is that for me, I felt that I really wanted our foundation to be generational and to make sure that kids and grandkids, everybody understands the importance of giving back. So when COVID hit, it was, the whole world was just thrown into distraught. And what I was most concerned about was I was noticing all of these organizations that needed help and all of these people that were in desperate need of help. Organizations like ours, everyone kind of pulled back and said, okay, listen, we're in COVID. We have no idea what's happening. We have no revenue. We can't help. And it really broke my heart. And I really felt that at a time when the needy needs help the most, the people that can help have now stepped away. So at that point, I talked to my family and I said, nope, we can't do that. Sorry, Karen, did I interrupt you?
No, I love it.
Okay, so I think this was 2020, so I don't remember now. I think it was 2020.
That's
okay,
correct.
So in 2020, I sat down with their parents and I said, I would like to rebrand our organization and continue philanthropy and make sure that we can kind of show the world that it doesn't matter if it's COVID, there's always help that there's always help that the world needs, kind of thing. So we rebranded it in 2020. Suraj and I became co-chairs, and the reason why I was laughing with Karen is that when it's a family business, I don't know if any of you are here in a family business, but I've always worked with my parents, so they're always just there kind of telling you what to do. And when I said I wanted to launch it, they were on board 100%. They said, Reetu, do it. It sounds amazing. And then my dad said, okay, Reetu, you would be the president and I'll be the chair. And I'm just staring at him. I'm thinking, what? So I literally had to speak up and say, Dad, no. This is, I want to be able to take it over. And it was just the funniest, awkwardest silence as my dad and I just stared at each other. And thankfully my mom, my brother stepped in and said, listen, this is Reetu's initiative. Everyone's here. Everyone's working together. We're a family at the end of the day, but just, let her have this one. Just let her run with it. So we ended up doing a lot of great work. We were able to send concentrators to India. We were able to fund 400 tablets to kids in rural Jamaica to make sure that although their schools were closed, they were still getting educated. And that was sort of the goal. I wanted to make sure that we also continue our efforts for education for children and for empowerment. So did I miss anything?
No, honestly, you covered everything beautifully.
So you kind of mentioned that point when, I don't want to say apprehension, right? But I can almost picture it. You're staring at your father's staring at you. A bit, I think you used the word awkward, right? I think sometimes these kinds of conversations can be hard for people to have, or next gen children to have with their parents, because they may have a different area that they are really passionate about, and maybe they don't really want to carry on the legacy of what their parents were doing. So Suraj, sounds like you kind of stepped in a bit. Could you give us maybe, or give everyone a little bit of advice around how you might have that conversation, or how you can make that conversation a little easier, or you know, just begin that conversation?
Yeah, definitely. You know, Karen, exactly as you said, and exactly as Reetu said, I'll never forget that moment. It is always a little bit uncomfortable to have these discussions, right? I mean, it's uncomfortable to go to anyone's boss and say, hey, I want to try something new. I want to do it. I want to go down a new path, what have you. It is way more difficult when that person is also a very close family member, because there's a lot of, you know, interplay dynamics. Honestly, the best advice I can give is that in our experience, and from the experience of family businesses that I know, the status quo is always the easiest thing to gravitate back towards, right? Typically, it worked. It's gotten people to a place where they're successful. You know, I think hopefully most of the family businesses that are here are all doing very well, and they're doing well because the last generation did very well. So there's always going to be a natural inclination towards, you know, if it ain't broke, right? Things are working, so why we don't need to really change anything. But the flip side of that is sometimes a new perspective can come in with the second generation or the third or fourth or what have you, where you kind of have that mindset of, okay, we've been doing things in a certain way, but I actually think there's a new way that we haven't considered that could actually be better and could actually generate that impact. And it's not always easy, but the best thing you can do is to sort of force the kind of a whole family to have those discussions and kind of lay everything on the table, right? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's why I think it could work. Here's why it's different, but let's pilot it. Let's give it a shot. Because also, if you have the ability to be a little more stern and say, hey, I want to do this and here's why I want to do it, but also have the flexibility to say, if it's not working, we're not committed to this new path, right? But it kind of gives you the ability to prove to anyone that's part of the business that I think this is going to work. Let me show you that it's going to work. And then we'll kind of see we're going in a direction everyone likes, because that's exactly what happened with our family foundation, right? Reetu's been leading it since 2020. And, you know, we've gone in a lot of new directions. We have a new mandate. We've done a lot of different projects, and everyone can see that this is exactly what our foundation should be. So often those awkward conversations end up actually leading to the most fruitful outcomes.
Wonderful. Reetu, would you mind sharing a little bit about Project Kindness?
Sure, I would love to. So Project Kindness, such an interesting story. Where our family's business background is real estate and hotels. So as soon as COVID hit, and this was now in Jan Feb, we're starting to see occupancies drop, we're starting to see revenues drop. And when we hit the state of emergency, which was in March, I'm looking at all of our numbers dropping, and for me that really wasn't the concern, because the whole world was going through it. It wasn't that it was just targeted at our company. The whole world was going through the same sort of financial crisis. But what was really bothering me was that all of our team across our entire company, they're now scared. And they're now, they're worried about their life. They're worried about, are we going to get paid? Are we not going to get paid? Everyone has this fear, and it was really bothering me, and I couldn't sleep. So one night I was up just thinking, what can I do? There's all of these things going on in the world, but there has to be a way that we can help, and there has to be a way that we can give back and start sort of this snowball of kindness. I wanted to make sure that despite the darkness that the world is feeling, that if we're able to spread kindness and we're able to spread light, that would be contagious and that would spread really quickly. So I didn't sleep, and I called Suraj first thing in the morning. I just said, listen, we need to do something. I want to be able to give back. And what my idea was that as our hotels were kind of winding down, we had a lot of food that would have just gone to waste. So I told Suraj, I said, why don't we get all of our hotels, get all the food together, and let's donate it to someone like a Second Harvest. So Second Harvest will take all that food and then in turn donate it to shelters. Suraj loved the idea. So we were able to roll it out, and within 24 hours, we donated almost 2,000 pounds of food to Second Harvest. And what was so amazing and heartwarming, and what made me feel so satisfied, was that all of our teams, all of our hotel teams, not only did they jump on board and they were so excited, but it also gave them hope. It gave them hope at a time when the whole world was so dark. And that was my intention. I wanted everyone to realize that, yes, we're in a place where we don't know what's going to happen next, but there's always a way to find positivity. There's always a way to find light. And usually that way is to be able to give back and to help others. So this Project Kindness kind of rolled through for the next 2 years. We were able to do, we donated masks to UHN when there was a mask shortage. We would donate to retirement homes in the city. It was really wonderful. Our teams really just jumped on board, and everybody was willing to help, which was great.
That's so amazing. That's such a wonderful story.